We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win, and the others too.
The drink the astronauts took to the moon.
Astronauts to the moon.
Why has nobody been to the moon in such a long time?
That's not an 8-year-old's question. That's my question. I want to know, but I think I know. Because we didn't go there, and that's the way it happened. And if it didn't happen, it's nice to know why it didn't happen, so in the future, if we want to keep doing something, we need to know why something stopped in the past that we wanted to keep it going.
It was our pleasure to have participated in one great adventure. It's an adventure that took place not just in the month of July, but rather one that took place in the last decade. We all here and the people listening in today had the opportunity to share that adventure over its developing and unfolding in the past months and years. It's our privilege today to share with you some of the details of that final month of July that was certainly the highlight for the three of us of that decade. We're never able to see stars from the lunar surface or on the daylight side of the moon by eye without looking through the optics. I don't recall during the period of time that we were photographing the solar corona what stars we could see.
I don't remember seeing any.
Neil, you were a little bit concerned, you said, about...
Would each of you give us your estimate of what is the meaning of this to all of us?
Are you going to try that?
After you.
But there's a pressure.
Well, yeah, people come out and they've run out of anecdotes, you know, and they just start making stuff up.
Yeah.
Like that Neil Armstrong guy. Have you seen him on the talk shows?
Neil Armstrong, you mean the first man to walk on the moon?
Talk about a fish story.
Yeah.
Man, and they're buying it.
Oh, yeah.
In regards to the computers, we were chatting about this. On the actual Apollo, the landing module, the whole process, how powerful a computer did you have? How, in today's terminology, how powerful would you say it was?
Well, it was not as good as a laptop, but it was probably a little better than a handheld. It actually had, I mean, some of you that are computer nerds.
He's a pilot. He's not a nerd.
You know, you got to have gigs and that kind of stuff, and we didn't have gigs or even megs. The Apollo computer had 32K of fixed memory and 2K of erasable. That was it. No screen, no sound, no icons, no nothing. Just, and the keyboard just had, it had 0 through 10, read, clear, and enter. I think it might have been 1 or 2 more keys. we had no graphics, no screen, no. On its best days, it couldn't get to 1 megahertz. So it was slow and weak, but it got its there.
Yeah, baby. Hey, Matt. Yeah.
I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again. But going to Mars should be one of the next series of steps that humans do. The first step should be going back to the moon for a number of technical reasons and exploration reasons, and then after that, Mars, maybe high orbit in Venus atmosphere, maybe going to Europa. There's all kinds of targets to go to, places of interest in our solar system. The only limit to human future is in our own imaginations.
Give me a summary of what the mission goals are for your time on orbit and what responsibilities and jobs are going to be yours when you're up there.
Well, I'm one of the science guys and I'm one of the repair guys. And fortunately, there's lots of science and lots of repair to do on station, so that will certainly keep us all busy.
Like, moon rocks that they've collected from the moon have turned out to not really be moon rocks. Like, a bunch of them for sure have been tested by scientists and they've found that these rocks are from another planet. But there was a rock that they gave to whoever's the head of Holland, and it was personally given with a plaque by Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins, and it turned out to be petrified wood. Moon rock given to Holland by Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin is fake. It's a moon rock given to the Dutch Prime Minister by the Apollo 11 astronauts in 1969 turned out to be a fake. So they were giving people pieces of petrified wood saying, "This is for you, we went to the moon, God bless America."
308,000 euros.
Or it's possible they just had some fake rocks. Here's the thing, Bill Clinton had a quote in his book, in one of his books. I think his book is called My Life. And he had a quote about the moon landing and a story about him having this conversation with a carpenter. And that this carpenter said that he didn't believe the moon landing. He goes, "Them television fellers, they can make anything look real." And he said, this is a quote in Bill Clinton's fucking book. He said, "Back then, I thought that guy was a quack. But after, or a crank, whatever, crazy person. But after 8 years in the White House, I was wondering if he wasn't ahead of his time."
Oh, wow.
This is a guy that was the fucking president of the United States. And he's talking specifically about an old carpenter telling him the moon landing was fake. And then he says, "I wondered after 8 years in the White House if that guy wasn't ahead of his time."
At NASA's Goddard Space Center in Maryland, home to the National Space Science Data Archives.
This film you're making now, what is it? Does it have a name? I mean, do you have a name for it yet, or
You're calling it Did We Go?
Did We Go? Okay.
Doesn't have it either. The Smithsonian doesn't have it. Johnson doesn't have it.
Right. We've been unable to track it down. I mean, we don't know where this telemetry data ended up, and we don't know what path it may have taken. So, unfortunately, I'm afraid I can't really give you much of a clue as to where this data ended up and whether it still exists or not.
NASA admitted that it had lost the original footage of man's first steps on the moon. My next guest, Aaron Rainin, started out believing the official version of history. Tell us why you have changed your mind and now become a skeptic.
I was the first to report, and you played the clip earlier tonight, that all the science data, the telemetry data, was missing. Now, Geraldo, for NASA to come out and say that all the tapes were erased, I mean, it's incredible. Geraldo, this isn't just one tape. This is reams of tape labeled Apollo 11 moon landing. Someone had to physically go and erase it. And it just, you know, I really, in my heart, Geraldo, I want us to go. And I know all your viewers want us to go.
We're also joined in LA by Bill Nye, the science guy. Bill, Aaron's right about erasing these tapes. I mean,
no, okay, it's my turn, kids. Okay. So what happened, these were NASA tapes, and I got lost. Stuff happens.
Okay. You know, it's very challenging to try to prove we landed on the moon, and it shouldn't be challenging. The tape should be there. There should be plenty of evidence.
I said, hey, Buzz, could you be on the show tonight? And he's like, in the hospital, can't talk long. I asked him, did you walk on the moon? And he said, yeah. He said, yeah, I have. So I'm going to trust Buzz.
Well,
I could trust you.
Well, I mean, let's say you trusted your television set, really, didn't you? That's how most of us believed it.
No, I got it from Buzz.
Yeah, well,
I got it from Buzz.
I mean, for instance, let's think about what you believe on TV. I'm actually nowhere near this bridge. I mean, Glenn, to me, it's incredible that we can keep track of Egyptian pots from 2,000 years ago, but we lose tapes made only 40 years ago.
Well, wait a minute. There is a very good explanation.
Well, I'm just an expert on the moon landing, and what I can say, and I know you have a tape there, is I tracked down Gene Kranz, who's the director, the flight director of Apollo 11. He admitted to me the tapes are missing.
All right, go ahead. Play Gene Kranz, please.
I haven't seen anything that indicates the telemetry data is even in existence, and as I said, even if we had it, we don't have the machines to play it back.
But your own research has shown the telemetry data is missing.
That's right.
Also really pushing the boundaries in terms of where we're going forward with exploration. I think humans are naturally driven to do this, and this is really the beginning, I think, of human beings leaving low Earth orbit. I certainly plan on being around to...
The plan that NASA has is to build a rocket called SLS, which is a heavy lift rocket. It's something that is much bigger than what we have today, and it will be able to launch the Orion capsule with humans on board, as well as landers or other components to destinations beyond Earth orbit. Right now, we only can fly in Earth orbit. That's the farthest that we can go. We only can fly in Earth orbit. That's the farthest that we can go. And this new system that we're building is going to allow us to go beyond and hopefully take humans into the solar system to explore. So the moon, Mars, asteroids, there's a lot of destinations that we could go to, and we're building these building block components in order to allow us to do that eventually.
We are headed 3,600 miles above Earth, 15 times higher from the planet than the International Space Station. As we get further away from Earth, we'll pass through the Van Allen belts, an area of dangerous radiation. Radiation like this can harm the guidance systems, onboard computers, or other electronics on Orion. Naturally, we have to pass through this danger zone twice, once up and once back. But Orion has protection. Shielding will be put to the test as the vehicle cuts through the waves of radiation. Sensors aboard will record radiation levels for scientists to study. We must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space. For this flight, it's time to head home.
Any ill effects from the Van Allen radiation belts?
No. Now, I'm not sure we went far enough out to encounter the Van Allen radiation belt. Maybe we did.
Beginning at an altitude of 1,000 miles and extending an additional 25,000 miles, lay lethal bands of radiation called the Van Allen radiation belts. Every space mission in history with humans on board, from both the United States and Soviet Union, from the first in 1961 to the present, has been well below this deadly radiation field. Mercury, Gemini, Soyuz, Skylab, the Space Shuttle, all maintained altitudes well below 1,000 miles. All except Apollo.
Not on our mission, by the way, they hadn't been discovered yet. I don't know the distance to the Van Allen radiation belt, and if we did, it wasn't a problem. If we were going to encounter it, then we would have had to build the spacecraft and the spacesuit to to not give humans a problem. You don't just build something and hope it works. You study to see what the threats are, the environment is, and then you say, how thick do I have to make the metal on the spacecraft so that going through this kind of radiation or these kind of meteoroids, it won't get hurt. And so then we build it that way.
The belts are 1,000 miles to 25,000 miles above the Earth.
Then we went right out through them.
No effects on your cells?
We didn't even know it. I don't think anybody, well, maybe somebody said you went through the radiation belt, but we didn't feel it inside.
If you'd like, look at pictures from space where you see the Earth as a sphere. Those pictures are not faked, and I'll tell you just, if nothing else, here's why you can tell they're not faked. Just to create the paperwork that NASA has created, in NASA in this one case, just the paperwork to send anything out in space, to send people into orbit or to send them to the moon, that amount of paperwork would make faking it prohibitively expensive. No one could afford to generate that much documentation.
If you want to do something with $3.5 trillion, you can do whatever you want. Whatever you judge to be important to the profile of the nation that you were trying to build and to sustain.